Just answering questions with WAPTech. Synopsis of a previous video. I pointed out that our infrastructure in this country is vulnerable because some idiot with a rifle firing at 2 transformers was able to take out an entire county. So what do people do when they reactionarily find out that their world is not as stable and safe as they thought and need somebody to victimize and or demonize because they don't want to deal with actually fixing the electrical system in Texas instead of bitching every year about how it's the government's fault and yet you won't let them fix it because reasons, and then you take the money anyway and spend it on hookers and blow. So how do assholes like that deal with it? They talk about drag queens story time. Again, one man can make a difference because you can use a rifle to take out a transformer. Answer to your question: you put up cinder block walls with cement or mortar and fill them with sand because as the bullets go through, the sand will slow it down. Secondarily, you can put up sheet metal, steel plate, whatever. It's okay if the bullet gets through. And then ceramic pieces like you would do for bathroom. And then another plate behind it of metal and hold it together as a sandwich, and that will slow down or stop a bullet too. Do both. Surround all the equipment as much as you can. Then give a large distance between that and the perimeter, larger if possible, at 100 feet minimum, so that people will have a harder time hitting anything, and if they hit something, nothing happens. Next, redundancy. This has happened before at another time, and it was done to a lot more equipment, and it had almost no effect because there was redundancy in the area. The equipment wasn't the only link in the chain. In, I think it was Moore County, these 2 transformer groups or power stations were the only links. They need to have more links put in. Now, what does that got to do with people wearing mascara? I don't want to know what you did. I don't want to know what's in your browser history. I already know because some of the comments left on other channels and on mine. The video I'm talking about I also mentioned that a good old boy sheriff in the area exonerated somebody who was attempting to be considered the cause of it or somebody in the know. Because that person who's a hyper-conservative, over-the-top, not giving you any doubt about what their intentions were, kind of person who posts non-factual data on Facebook all the time, lies, who was involved professionally, literally paid to be a psy-ops officer, a person who puts out propaganda to misdirect people to attack whoever their opponents are. Literally, a psy-op. This person was exonerated because I did good police work, and I had a talk with her. And now there's a rumor that they're related to each other directly, or one has dirt on the other. I don't want to go into it. The point is, all of that distraction, which was intentionally done by a conservative on Facebook, has nothing to do with your power grid's vulnerable, fix it. And if you're in Texas, fire the people who keep not fixing it. And after 9/11 happened for about 5 years, the U.S. government quietly upgraded most of the equipment, as long as you didn't replace it since then, with equipment that was made so that if you tried to shoot it with ordinary rifles, it wouldn't do jack shit, and also doing, redundancy. And, or putting ceramic plating up with metal around it, or putting up cinder block walls filled with sand. Because it worked. Because the military tried and failed to take out their own equipment by doing a test, by shooting it with everything up to 50 BMG. Basically, unless you literally used a howitzer, it wouldn't shut down. And then making a big space so somebody couldn't come up and do just that. Because it's harder to hit at a distance, 100 feet minimum, each direction. There's your answer. 4 minutes. Was that hard? So, why do people bring up liberal drag queen story hours, story time? And why is it always coming from people we inevitably find out are conservative Republican propagandists that are in the closet about their attraction to Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter? One of these that was accused of being a drag queen story time, which it wasn't, was somebody dressed up as literally Johnny Depp's version of the Mad Hatter reading Alice in Wonderland. Gee, that's inappropriate somehow in some universe you exist in. And the complaint the guy made eventually, this was the town hall, is he said, you don't understand. This is immoral because they made the person doing this look sexy. And then on further inquiry, someone actually asked them, "Are you just attracted to Johnny Depp and just in the closet?" At which point this individual left the building and was divorced recently. Why is it the conservatives and Republicans who always show a fixation with something perverse, by their own definition, always end up being guilty of it? Why are they having drag queens in the United States? Why, if you go to a circus in the past, you'd find men dressed up as women because they couldn't find women for some reason. They could do the gymnastics and the roughhousing that the clowns do at a circus on the back of an elephant in some cases to do some show. Because they needed a female character to play a female. The female to play the female character, couldn't find one, so they had a guy dress up in an exaggerated, over-the-top, caricature of what a woman is, so it'd be easier to see it a long distance with bad lighting, so that they could tell a story. Or they call it doing a tableau. And this is a tradition in art all the way back to the original theater, where women were forbidden from being actors, so men would dress up as women. But that's drag queen. No, it's called acting. And you're a nitwit, and I don't care what you think. And by the way, what is it with all the conservatives being found out have a visit to Thailand and totally didn't go to one of those drag shows? Because those were totally all women. Next, I'd like to point out a lot of people who are being accused of being drag queens are actually genetically born females who are just doing drag queen aesthetics to do an art bit. It's really hard to look like Marilyn Monroe if you don't look like her, but you can do an exaggerated version and it'll work. If a guy can do it, a woman can do it too. Over half of the people who are drag queens, or whatever you want to call them, are straight now, because they don't discriminate against straight people being drag queens. I know that might be something you have a hard time grinding your gears about. And again, I want to mention, some conservative politician had a thing for Johnny Depp and didn't want to come out of the closet and ended up getting divorced. Why story time with drag queens? Again, a large number of, not all of them, but a large number of them, if you look up the number of times, it's them doing a costume change to dress up one of the characters. And if you don't want men dressed up as what you are assuming are sexy women characters doing this, by the way, some of them were actually just women dressing up as women. Why don't you just let cosplayers do it? How about cosplayer story time and story hour? Yeah, like me, showing up reading Dracula. Do you want that? Would you like me showing up being dressed up as one of the characters from, and I'm telling you which one, from The Fifth Element? I took offense at that. Having young ladies show up dressed up as Isabella or any other Disney princess character or anything. I can be Donkey. The point is, the majority of what you're complaining about are people just dressing the part from the book and or just dressing up. Drag queens are associated primarily with bars and nightlife and club life, but that's not the only thing they do. And again, emphasis added, just because you dress up as a drag queen doesn't mean you're gay. They're playing a part. Drag queen story hour and story time in public libraries. How often does this happen? There are 35 chapters in the United States and 5 international ones. It's not that widespread. But if you're on Fox News where they talk about the war on Christmas every fucking year when there isn't one, because they're asshole lying shitbags, you won't understand that. There's opposition towards the books. These are book burners who are using the excuse of the person reading it. Again, I'm going to repeat this. Some guy thought Johnny Depp's version of the Mad Hatter was sexy and didn't want to come out of the closet. It's not always the drag queen. It's sometimes the book. These are just book burners. They don't like the book. This is a shoe in the door to censor books. If you want that kind of world, that's what Adolf Hitler and Mussolini went towards. Opposition towards the drag queens, cross-dressing, and cosplay are quite common. One of the reasons I have on my channels, I have videos about firearms, is so that cosplayers could dress up as characters that had to have a sidearm or a rifle and make it look comically not functional enough that they wouldn't get picked on by random police or others who don't like cosplayers going from the airport or from wherever they're staying in a motel to a cosplay convention. These are anti-cosplayers. Yes, they exist for whatever reason. And a lot of them express extreme reactions to people who are, well, they're dressed too sexy. So you're turned on by them and you're closeted about it. Funny thing is, a lot of them are closeted about being straight, apparently. WebTech, this is all just hate speech. Oh my God. Yes, of course it is. Somehow, everything's hate speech if you want to lie. Opposition towards books is book burner bullshit. I will not listen to it. But they're reading it to kids. Okay, now we get to the point where people actually have a complaint. This is the part where I might get flagged for hate speech. A lot of groups of people are quoting one person saying that this is enforcing or forcing or encouraging diversity, which they treat as some code word. And another quote someone put up of encouraging acceptance of people who are not strictly A or B, male or female or whatever. And that's inappropriate for kids. The absolute mind-bending majority of these occurrences are people who are 18 and over required environments, not where kids can get in. And the ones that say all ages, if you're not aware of what all ages means, it means anybody old enough to enter the building without any legal restriction, which means 13 and over, not little kids. It just means that they don't serve alcohol. They stamp your hand with an X. That's why you get the X on the back of the hand. At least they used to do that. It means this person doesn't get any alcohol because they're not old enough to drink, but they're allowed in a venue where it has things that may be PG-13, hence the name 13. It's 13-year-old, but they're not little kids. And yes, there is a vanishingly small number of these things where it appears that people are encouraging little kids to get comfortable with the idea that not everybody is conventional. If you're in a town where wearing a pink scarf is considered scandalous, yeah, I think this would upset all of you, I guess, because you're in a rarefied atmosphere and you all need something else better to do, but okay. But they're not inflicting themselves on little kids because if Fox said that's happening, it's a lie. Get over it. Waptech, you obviously have some sort of... Yeah, I was the guy who dressed as the hyper-masculine guy. I was the bouncer at some of these clubs in Portland. You have to be in costume. Okay, so instead of being almost 6 feet tall, I'm 7 feet tall. And I'm dressed as any character I want to be. And there are pictures of me, and I'm even apparently on a goth album cover someplace in Europe. I don't know which one it is. I'll have to look it up. And I wouldn't recognize myself even if I tried to because it was photo manipulated. But I was Lurch or other. I was only Lurch once, so that one isn't going to show up. I know there were no photos taken of me. But technically, I was in drag dressed as a guy because I was dressed as an overemphasis version, not sexualized, just an overarching, holy shit, let's not pick a fight with the bouncer because he's 7 feet tall. This head floating in time-space, 7 feet above the ground, looking down at you with extra characteristics added to it, saying, is there anything I can help you with? Please let me. They wouldn't do a damn thing at the doorway. I was the doorman and the bouncer a couple of times. And it was fun. I got to dress up and I got to wear my lifters. And apparently I'm on an album cover. But anyway, let's get on with it. Yeah, I have a personal, I have a beef here. You complaining about people cosplaying? Get ready to have a fight with the fucking entire internet. Drag queen is just your code word for you hating cosplayers. So really it is. And for some of you, it's what your entire search history is. If you obsessively look up something you say is perverted, you're the pervert. These are most of the time, virtually all the time, people who have no interest in anything you're talking about them having an interest in, and it's just pure demonization. And it has nothing to do with anything you say as a consequence. But yes, there are two people who claim to be part of the drag queen or the drag subculture who have said things that seem really suspicious. And they're hated by everybody in that subculture and have been driven out. That isn't a basis for going after what you think are millions of them when it's only 35 chapters in the United States doing this. So that's me addressing something that had nothing to do with an infrastructure video I did. Because someone on Facebook wanted it to be about that. just like you want it to be about the war on Christmas. It's never been a valid argument, and no one wants to hear it. Now, don't post this stuff anymore. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good